Hey all. So, first war of season 34 is here, and surprising absolutely no one, my team is three Defiance champions. Um, I've talked on stream recently about the fact that I actually have nine at rank 3 or above, and looking around my battle group, the average seems to be closer to about 3. So, doesn't really surprise that I end up taking a fair number of fights because my roster just lines up really well against this global. Anyway, first fight is She-Hulk against this Ebony Maw here. Note is now slightly different, so if you use a non-science champion and you end a combo in the same basic attack, it will be a guaranteed crit and will miss, because non-science champions with guaranteed crits automatically miss against Ebony Maw. So beware that, don't do that. This is clever placement. However, if you use a science champion, like She-Hulk, then this is going to be very simple. So note that because we have Reed on the team, every time we apply a debuff, we're going to get those power stings, we're going to knock him down almost exclusively with special one counters, but we could also counter his heavy or just reparry, right? But I'm not sure he gives us an opening for a reparry for literally this entire fight. Anyway, note how much damage the power stings are doing. This is just completely destroying him. But right there, I arguably made a mistake because I probably, or at least there, I probably should have landed a heavy somewhere in here. Because now he decides to be rude, he's not throwing this special, and then he finally throws it, and of course it lined up perfectly that the heavy counter needed to be where the falter was, and I didn't catch it before I went for it, so bravo, Ma, you cost me a potion. Anyway, still a very quick fight, just over 70 seconds. That Power Sting really does a tremendous amount of work. We don't have to worry about keeping She-Hulk's Furies up. She just doesn't need it for this kind of fight, and she, yeah, handles it perfectly because of Defiance. So then we move on to this Mysterio. Spider-Man 2099 was banned, but as with a number of other Powersnack fights, this is actually one where I strongly prefer Reed, because it's not just about controlling Powersnack, which we don't really even have to do, because we're not going to gain buffs and therefore there's nothing to reverse there, right? The more important thing with this particular fight is actually Reed's suppression. So any Defiance champion could do this, but Reed is the only, or very close to the only, science champion who can do it, keeping Mysterio to throwing almost no specials. Hawkeye comes to mind, or Spider-Gwen if you get really lucky, but Reed is just going to be able to do it very, very reliably. Also, he's a rank 4, so I can block for days, even with Mysterio's block penetration. So we power started because we're just not taking any chances here. You definitely do not need to. I have foregone it before and been totally fine on this fight, but it's the first war of the season. I have these boosts stashed. I have excess of these boosts stashed. I think it may have already happened. If not, it's going to somewhere later in this video, or actually use the wrong one and then immediately replace it, and it still doesn't matter because I had a duplicate in the inventory. It's fine. But because it's the first war of the season, I'm over boosting. I'm being very, very safe, doing everything that I know I don't necessarily need to make sure that this fight goes down. So notice that he is at about 30% health left, and he has only thrown one special. And that is exactly what I mean about why Reed in particular is so good for this fight, because Mysterio's danger comes from either you eating a heavy from him, which should not happen, that's a mistake, or just him throwing specials. And if he only ever throws one special in an 80-second fight and then it's over, then he's not very dangerous, is he? So really, really like that matchup. Moving on to this Stryfe, we're now back to She-Hulk because this is on Footloose, and so we're going to take advantage of her slow. We threw on power back boosts because we are also going to be, or sorry, I am now throwing on power back boosts because we're also going to be taking advantage of her special 2. And I think you've seen me do this before. Oh, not on Footloose, but I've taken like Dragon Man on 38 this way before, and we've sent other people with this basic tactic. But the idea is that because her special 2 Petrify is more than 100% in potency, and you combine it with Reed's Petrify pre-fights, you control kinetic transference. You actually reverse it a fair amount. So between that and the slow and just her being able to do a good amount of damage, plus the power stings every time Stryfe does throw a special, this is going to be pretty simple. So notice how he's gaining power there, but then we throw this special 2, and then watch, I mean, he throws this, but watch what happens next time we block him. So he comes in here for a parry, and boom, almost half a bar of power gone. So really, really powerful piece of control there. We go for another one. And again, we have 0 Furies right now, but 30 seconds have passed, and he's 2/3 down. Another chunk from the power stings. I waited carefully on that to make sure that the heavy landed after the invisibility wore off. I could have been slightly more careful there because honestly his glancing could have triggered invisibility, and I'm not sure I was quite on top of it. But other than that, that's about as simple as it gets. So the power sting helped, but it was only 1/5 of our overall damage, which just again, She-Hulk does not need her Furies for fights like this. You don't need to agonize over it. That was plenty quick. I mean, boosted pretty darn high, but plenty quick. So then we shift over to Killmonger. These next 2 fights are not Mystic Dispersion, so the fact that he's Defiance doesn't really matter. I have no idea what Spam did there. It was like 4-star Arena AI or something. That really shook me. I was not expecting that. I was like, oh, he's going for a heavy, so he's immediately going to throw it. Anyway. All we're really doing here is getting him to throw his special 1, and yay, we have True Strike. So, ideally, probably would have thrown that special 1 slightly earlier to see if we could have avoided giving him even 1 count of spider nonsense. And there we get another one, but it's not really worth agonizing over. Notice that because the counterpunch lets us get these easy intercepts, and we're keeping True Strike up the entire time, we are doing a ton of damage. This fight is not going to be very long, and we just do not have to worry about him evading. He does love those random heavies. Oh well. Killmonger is definitely one of the best Spider-Ham counters on most nodes, especially here where he gets these easy intercepts. He's easy to path because he's Defiance. And there it goes. No power back boosts necessary. So then we move on to Ragthor. Similar idea here. Need to push him to the special 1, and then it's basically game over. Now, there is one thing that can mess you up with Killmonger against Ragthor, and that is intercepting him out of the gate. Like that. I think I literally said out loud to myself, don't do that, after the first one, and then I immediately did it again. So then I just shut down and got way more conservative, making sure he was blocking, because I didn't intend for either of those intercepts. Man, he's dashing all over the place. But now we have True Strike up. Now it's okay. So I just need to remember that, kind of like Rhino or other champions that punish intercepts, he loves giving them to you, and next time I take this, be a little more careful out of the gate. This is a rank 4 Thor Ragnarok, so fair bit of health to chunk through. He has one of the highest health pools in the game, but that's fine because we're getting those easy intercepts, and we're doing plenty of damage. Now right there, I did mess up on my counter, but I knew I was close enough to the next bar of power that if I just blocked and relied on the counterpunch, not just for an intercept, but for an opening to give myself a few more hits to throw the special 1, I could turn off the power gain before he got to a special 3, which is what happened. So minor mistake, but immediately corrected it using Killmonger's kit. So that intercept is safe because we hadn't lost True Strike yet. We close out the fight. He was being annoying, but if he had thrown that next special too, would have been simple. Now here I'm going to pause because I have to apologize. As happens at least once a season, it seems, I don't have a recording for you of this next fight. I thought I hit record, but clearly I either forgot to or I didn't click the button enough for it to actually start counting down. You guys know how it is. Anyway, I thought about reconstructing it in a duel, but you don't have Defiance in duels, you don't have the Power Sting synergy in duels, and it was honestly a pretty vanilla fight. Basically, what we did was I had my buddy Strands put a House of X guidance pre-fight on America so that I was able to stun her despite Mighty Charge with those passive stuns, because She-Hulk is a hero and can use that. And so then I just stunned her with parries as much as possible to avoid her throwing heavies, and I just kept landing my own heavies or special ones because those... I mean, we know the slow isn't going to stick, the exhaustion isn't going to stick, but those debuffs don't have to stick to apply the power sting. And so then every time Chavez threw her specials, she would take a good chunk of damage. I was going for backdraft light intercepts when I could. I think she went for exactly one of them out of like 9 attempts. The AI was not playing ball as far as giving me opportunities to get the intercept node down. But it didn't matter. It was, I forget exactly how long it was, but it was less than a 2-minute fight. It was quite quick. And part of the reason that it was quick was that after I got the one intercept I did, Chavez immediately got really weird with her AI. Shocker, right? And she threw 2 heavies out of nowhere when I was nowhere near her. Now, I let both of them play out, so she had the negative dimension, which means that I knew I could not push her to a special 2. But that's fine because it's easy to avoid that when you're using a Defiance character. But that actually sped up the fight pretty considerably, because then she had power gain on her special 1, and so every time I hit into her, I only had to land a single combo to push her over a bar. She would throw a special 1, she would take power sting damage, she would refresh my Furies, and so I closed out the fight with like 6 Furies, because we just did that for a while until her dimensions fell off, and it was a very simple fight. I actually think if I take it again, I would probably intentionally bait a single heavy early on to try and speed that up. But you definitely don't need to. The pace of the fight was fine before she did that. So next up we have Mangog on 54, one of the defining meta placements of the last several globals seasons. He's just dangerous here, right? He gets to his special 2 very quickly, and when he throws it, it's unblockable, and it hurts. Doom can survive the first one, but if he throws 2 into your block, even if you play perfectly, sometimes that can be the end. So we've often been sending Spider-Man 2099, but he was banned this war. I think this and the boss are probably the 2 nodes where we really cared about that. But I do have a rank 4 read. I've taken other fights here and eaten special 2s. His careful study and resistances have saved me there. I figured they probably could here. We don't have to worry about the global. Makes for a pretty simple fight. There are other options, and this can go wrong, right? If he just pushes to special 2s repeatedly, throws them, and keeps hitting you. But you hope that that doesn't happen. So I did elect to go with an invulnerability over advanced power start, because this fight will never be fully under control. The enhanced power gain means that you never actually reverse his power gain with Reed. So I kind of figured I wouldn't even try. I assumed maybe he does end up throwing a special 2. If he does, because it's unblockable, I will have a very high evade chance, and I figured whatever hits get through, it'd be better to just take no damage from them than to try to avoid it altogether. Your mileage may vary on that. But coming up, you're going to see I've thrown 1 special 2, and I'm going to do something that I'm not sure everyone would, and that's I'm going to throw a special 1 here. I'm not going to push to another special 2, and that's because I need that stagger. It is actually more important than getting another Petrify up, because we really need to make sure he doesn't go unblockable and unstoppable. Now there, I probably could have pushed to another special 2 because he was about to run out of rage stacks, but that first special 1 is really important here. It just keeps him under control, and then he goes right back to throwing special 1s because he's like, haha, I'm ramping up, I'm going to go unblockable. It doesn't matter because you stagger the scary stuff, and then you safely build up to another special 2. We're ramped up so high here, we're doing so much damage. I don't think that's quite as quick as Miguel can do it. It takes about 100 seconds, but no worries whatsoever there. I'm very comfortable sending that again. A lower SIG or a rank 3 read might have a little bit harder of a time, but I still think it's a good assignment. You can also, of course, send Magic with the Purgatory synergy. We've been discussing a few others. So now we have the Super Skrull boss. You saw how reliable that Power Sting damage was earlier on this exact war for She-Hulk. And I figured, that it would be fine for this boss as well. She's Defiance. He is large, so her Furies are going to last longer. It's going to be totally fine. You're probably already noticing he doesn't really want to throw this special 1. There he finally does. Takes a little bit of Power Sting. Because we dashed in the middle of the special 1, we trigger the Falter and therefore give him a protection passive, but we don't actually miss. So there's no risk to that. Now he has this power gain. Thankfully this is a pretty low SIG Super Skrull, so it's not getting a ton of power. Throws another special, takes some Power Sting, and I'm like, alright, throw it, refresh. He does. We do the same thing with the Falter. We throw our special 1 here, we push. I'm like, alright, this is exactly what I was hoping for. We're just going to keep ramping up, keep doing more and more damage, because the thing is that Power Sting is direct damage, and therefore it ignores all this armor, it ignores all of this resistances from the adaptive node. We don't have to worry about that. But he is turtling just enough that we've now lost our first set of Furies. He waited out that first one, and I'm, at this point, realizing, okay, this is not the pacing that I was hoping for. I should probably also be throwing more heavies in some of these places, because that would be another source of debuffs. I just didn't think that was going to be an issue. I thought that the special 1s were going to be enough. I definitely didn't think that we were going to have this much trouble getting him to throw his specials. And so you can see that we are not on pace for the damage. We're almost halfway through the time, and we are nowhere near halfway through his health pool. So this was a pretty significant miscalculation on my part. I mean, I've said before, She-Hulk usually doesn't need the Furies, and she doesn't. But here she kind of does. And he's large, but he's not extra large. So while they are lasting longer, they're not lasting as long as they could. And we're really seeing it because they keep falling off. And that means that he's less likely to throw his specials, and our damage is not going to be as high. And as I said earlier, one thing that I did not realize in prepping for this is just how important it was going to be to throw specials. That's not really something that came up in my duels, but you can see we just don't have that many Power Stings up on him. And throwing a bunch more heavies and getting 2 guaranteed procs of slow every time would really help. So I don't think I'm going to send this again, even with that change. It's just not worth it. There are other options for this that are very good. I just admit I underestimated how important, for one thing, getting both exhaustions on the special 1 would be. Only getting one of those Power Stings instead of both really hurts, and it happens a lot in here. So, perfect RNG, perfect AI. This could have been a solo. If I'd played it better, it could have been a solo, but it's fine. There are other Defiance champions that could probably do this better. Off the top of my head, I think Hawkeye would probably have a better time of it because you still have the power control and you can hold on to the bleeds. I think that would probably be very helpful. You're going to get a lot more damage from that over the course of it. Outside of Defiance, let's see, Hercules can definitely do this. I believe that's who another battle group used. And I probably could have found room for him. We didn't end up assigning one. I don't think we needed it, but we have a few. And if I had looked for room, I'm sure I could have found it. I mean, that's always how assignments go. I definitely should have thrown that special one there, or just backed off and waited instead of being pushed to the special 2 here. But you can tell at this point, I'm just getting flustered. I'm playing more aggressive than I would like to because I know I'm going to time out and it's bugging me. So yeah, just big miscalculation. Oh yeah, another possible option that we'll probably use next time. I think Diablo would do a very, very good job of this. A lot of buffs to get rid of. Can be very tanky when running the recoil tree. I think, yeah, that would have been better. Tigra would not, just because of the way she interacts with the global, but thankfully we learned this lesson when the battle group only had one other death. We were at 5 deaths overall as an alliance, and they were in the low double digits, so like it wasn't going to turn the tide of the war. Glad we found out here. Anyway, I go ahead and finish it off with Killmonger because I know there's no way he's not going to get the last 20% down. But interestingly enough, in this fight, I actually think Killmonger would have done better than She-Hulk even without the power stings. Because True Strike is allowing us to bypass the resistances in the armor, same as the power stings do for her, but it's doing it for all of our basics. So even though we're not getting huge crits, this is something I talk about with Killmonger, we're just getting constant, reliable damage. And when we are landing debuffs, because they're those bleeds, they're out-damaging willpower as opposed to it working against us. But then the other thing about Killmonger is that as fights go long, it's actually very difficult for him to time out to any boss that can bleed. Because eventually you're going to get enough bleeds that you're going to be able to throw the special 3, and when you time it right, it's just going to do thousands and thousands and thousands of damage. See, that took 1 minute and 13 seconds to take off about 20%. Not impressive at all. But if you think about, okay, if that took 4 minutes, or let's say that took like 3:45 to take off 60%, by the time you take off that 60%, you definitely have the bleeds stacked up for a big special 3, and then I think the last 40% goes real quick. So, still not what I would send next time. I went through all of the options that I think are higher priority, but yeah, that was just a miscalculation. I apologize to the group for that one. That one is entirely on me. I have not had the power stings fail me before. It's a very powerful synergy. But there's a first time for everything, and I definitely pushed it a bit too far. So that's a bit of a bummer to start my season off losing an attack bonus, but I am glad that it wasn't a death, and I am super pumped about the Alliance's performance. For those of you who've been following my channel for a while, you know our first war of the season tends to be a little bit rough. And this actually matches our first war of last season of only 6 lost attack bonuses, and it was evenly split across all 3 battle groups. We lost 2 in every single one. And so that feels really great to me because we actually had a big shakeup of battle groups due to planning needs. Battle Group 1 and Battle Group 3 swapped a lot of members, and Campo is now running Battle Group 1. Be sure to check out his video. And, you know, whenever that happens, you hope that the things that were working keep working, and that you find new things to be really happy with. And I really like the group we've got, but it's nice to have the maiden voyage, so to speak, of this new group go so well. So really, really proud of all of them there. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. So until the next one, thanks so much for watching, and take care.